Not just
Shake hands.
what you say.
Mics are
I
on.
don't even know
Mics are
why
on.
you.
Yeah.
Mics are on.
That means very thing.
I was gonna go this whole week, but I wanted to make it for the ribbon cutting, so.
Is this a ribbon cutting?
Yeah, the ribbon cutting at 12, and then we'll do the jump. All that after. I'm not getting like, I'm doing the ribbon cutting.
Boss, you're up.
But we've already spent it.
I was there.
Good evening and welcome to the Spalding County Board of Commissioners zoning public hearing. Today is June 27th, 2024. The time is 6 p.m. I would request you please silence your cell phones and all other electronic devices. At this time, I would ask Commissioner Dutton to lead us in the invocation and Commissioner Johnson to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Be my pleasure. Please stand for our invocation. Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, Father, we come before you humbly tonight as servants here in our county. Father, please bless us to know thy will, to know what best to do for the citizens here in Spalding County that we represent. And Father, not just those in our district, but for the entire community, because this is one community, and we should be led as such. Father, we ask a blessing on all those that are in economic hardship, that have fallen on tough times during these economic upheavals. Father, please bless them, that their ends will meet, that their needs will be met. Father, please bless the employees of the county and those that work for us, both our normal employees and our first responders and those emergency personnel. Father, please bless them all, that their needs will also be met, that they will be safely guided by thy hand. Father, we ask a blessing on our family while we're away, and we say these and ask these blessings humbly in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add two amendments above public hearings. One, the first is going to be to review the funding for Heritage Gym, and the second is going to be to review the funding for children in the entering the aquatic center.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Above public hearings?
Yes, new
Second.
section D.
Let them finish. Any more questions?
Yes, I have a question. You said to review
Yeah.
the
discuss.
funding, to discuss the funding for Heritage Park,
Mhm.
and what was the other?
To review the charge of the children entering the aquatic center,
The fee.
the fee.
All right, and you.
I second.
You seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 5-0, motion carries. All right, let's hear the motion.
Mr. Chairman, on the first, on the gymnasium, the Heritage Park, I'd like to make a motion to allocate the $4 million to engineer and construct the Heritage Park gym, which completes all the 2016 SPLOST projects.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Yes. You're making a decision on the Heritage Park gym based on data that you had over 365 days ago. That is when that figure came to us, more than a year ago.
Thought we had a figure.
We don't have a firm figure. We have that much funding available for us today. That figure could be changed after we have the bids back for the facility. But as of today, that's the funding that we have available.
Okay. All right. I'm good with that. All right.
What was the motion again, Mr. Chairman, please?
It's to allocate the $4 million to engineer and construct the Heritage Park gym, which completes all the 2016 SPLOST projects.
All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 5-0. Motion carries.
And on the next would be to review the funding for the fees in the aquatic center with the children. I'd like to make a motion to suspend entry fees for kids who have Spalding County IDs from Spalding County School System and to suspend the entry fee for children under the school age for the fiscal year of '25.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Absolutely. What are the numbers for this? Because I'm confused. We decided that the M&O needed to be paid for, and therefore, the decision that we made to reduce the price for going in the pool was made based on that. So if something has happened where now the M&O is not important, I missed that. So I would wish someone would explain to me how we went from there to here in less than a week, because I feel like we make educated decisions when we're in here, and if you make a thought-out, educated decision, why would you come back a week later to change it? So I just need someone to help explain that to me, because I don't understand why we're doing the same thing over.
I agree, Glenn. I think covering the MMO is important to the taxpayers. I mean, we know that it's, the line item in this year's budget, correct me if I'm wrong, County Manager, is $1.1 million for the MMO.
1.083, yes.
That's a ton of money that's not covered in SPOS, that now the taxpayers are gonna have to fit the bill for.
This
And
is a
frankly,
brand new, this is a brand new facility.
Sure.
And, you know, I know things can happen over the course of a year. I don't know how much how the senior center has broken down or torn up since it's been built, you know, but I think that we could allot money for a year, basically, without the M&O for 1 year. I think we can do that, without worrying about the facility
And this is
itself.
such an unknown, and I think it's kind of a trial and error. We need to see how much people are really gonna use it.
Okay, but that was the things that we said last week when we were in this meeting. So that's still, I'm not understanding what happened. Because, as Commissioner Dutton says, the M&O is really important. Well, the M&O for the landfill is very important, but nobody at the landfill pays to use that service to drop their trash off. So I'm very confused, because on the one hand, it's one thing for some people, and on the other hand, it's one thing for others. So we're clearly picking and choosing who we want to give financial grace to. I don't have a problem, as far as I'm concerned, every Spalding County employee should be able to use that pool either for free or at a discounted rate. But last week, we talked about how much money that was gonna bring in and how it was gonna help pay for itself. So I'm just very confused. I just need someone to explain to me how we went from there to here.
I think the county manager originally, though, had the money set aside for the year. I think the board had just chose through leisure services not to go that route. So I think it was always there. We just didn't vote that way.
No. The money that we're setting aside in the budget has always been there, but at no point ever in the history of this center, at least since I've been involved, I mean, again, 2016 I wasn't involved, has it ever been a free pool? No one ever at any point went, oh yeah, it'll just be free and we can just walk in. Ever.
1 year.
Now we've said, hey, we've set the prices at this, and they're reduced until January, or Labor Day, or September 1st, or whatever the motion was, to sort of get people into the pool. I mean, it's $3, like,
Right.
it's $3. Like, that said, pools are not necessities. Nobody dies if they don't go to a pool. So it's a neat want. I mean, I'm glad that we have the pool. I'm glad that it's a thing. But on the other hand, like, we, as a government, it is sort of our responsibility to deal in some way with trash collection, some way with trash pickup, some way with, you know, like, that is a necessity. I mean, that's up there.
It is not an OCGA requirement for us to deal with trash. It's not an OCGA requirement for us to deal with recycling of any materials. We built, through the SPLOS, a recycling center. No recycling happened. It became a trash collection place. Anywhere in the world, people have to pay to get I pay for my trash through the city of Griffin. But I also subsidize all the people who use the collection center. So that's,
No,
for
I
me,
agree.
that's double taxation. I just think that we are not being consistent If
No.
we're not gonna charge for dumping trash, why are we gonna charge for getting in the pool?
I think you all are gonna look at that next year though, aren't you, excuse me, James? I mean, isn't that part of your budget next year? I mean, I think that we were looking at some things, I mean, obviously funding is pretty well for us, and we understand, knowing that that would be another, obviously several $1,000s that would go back into our budget if we decided to close those centers, but I thought, I thought we had decided maybe
Million.
next year, it'd be better next year to look at that rather than this year. I think,
I don't remember that conversation at all in
okay,
the
I
meeting.
just remember that, because it was never really, as far as
People
I'm
bring it up
concerned,
every
discussed.
year, but it's
We
not
do
really
bring it
been
up every year. We do.
really discussed.
So, but you're missing my point, is that why are we making a big deal about charging people $3 to go and get wet? But we're paying millions of dollars out of taxpayer money, and certain taxpayers are not benefited, to allow people to dump their trash for free.
We're talking about 1 year here with the pool, 1 year.
Again,
It's the same
Now,
thing.
it's a little different.
No,
because
it's the same
It's been
thing.
around for a long time, though. I mean, this
I-
is 1 year we're talking about.
I think it was,
Yeah.
I think it was a
Mr.
mistake.
Chairman, can we call for the question?
All right, I have a call for the
Or if we
question.
admit it to January, whatever, I don't care. I just think that, sometime at the end, this year, we need to at least consider that.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 3.
What was the
All those
motion?
opposed, 2.
To make it
Motion carries.
free.
All right, do we have
First
anybody
year.
who signed up for a public hearing?
No, sir, we do not.
All right, do we have to open, is there a requirement for me to open? All right, do I have to read the thing? All right, public hearing. Persons desiring to speak must sign in for the appropriate application. When called, speakers must state their names and addresses and direct all comments to the board only. Speakers will be allocated 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics as they relate to matters being considered by the Board of Commissioners on this agenda. No questions will be asked by any of the commissioners during citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during this meeting. We'll have a motion to open the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to open public hearing.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 4.
I raised my hand.
Okay, I'm sorry. 5. All right, we're in public hearing. Did anybody come?
No, sir.
Nobody signed up? All right, do I have a motion to close the
I
public hearing?
have a question. Are we
Yeah.
not allowed to speak during the public hearing?
I'm sorry,
You
us?
have to sign up.
Yes.
Do you want an explanation of the ordinance now or under the agenda item where it says you'll
Yeah, when
vote?
it comes to the agenda item, I suppose.
My question is, the original ordinance, it looks like, started in 1994, and I would like to see what the old ordinance was and what the changes are. I don't see anything that tells me what got changed on this.
Gwen, you're losing me on 1994. I know that's when the UDO
Okay,
was
yeah,
adopted.
it says here in the second paragraph, Spalding County, Georgia enacted the current zoning ordinance of Spalding County on January 1994. Therein adopted as official zoning map.
Right.
So,
We always put that in the preamble.
but
Because
we
we're
have,
amending, the subsequent amendments amend what you adopted in 94. But this is not amending any pre-existing text. This is a brand-new ordinance.
so I do remember that someone came to this board and asked about putting a solar farm on the property that is adjacent to the quarry property. If I am not mistaken, they were zoned for that change because that was agricultural.
We,
So if we passed it, where are the rules that go along with it?
well, that's what you're passing tonight. I'm not aware of us having approved any solar arrays, either medium or utility scale size. You adopted Appendix M. Reagan, can you pull up that appendix I showed you so you can put it on the screens?
Counselor, if you'd speak into the microphone so you can get recorded.
Reagan, can you pull up Appendix M so they can see it on their screens? In 2021, after inquiries were made the preceding year, we were tasked with drafting a solar ordinance. And at that time, following action in 2018, there had been a model ordinance prepared through a consortium of Emory, Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, City of Decatur, and the City of Atlanta. We use that as a model ordinance. We use that model ordinance as a prototype for Appendix M, which is for solar facilities. And it identifies the types of solar facilities that the county would allow. What it did not do was tell you or tell a developer or an individual property owner what solar facilities could go in what districts. So, Appendix M got adopted. This, what I'm going to call the Solar District Ordinance, was drafted. And through turnover prior to Sylvia being here, we could never get attention to this to get it on your agenda to get it concluded and get the Solar District Ordinance concluded. So what you have before you tonight is, or takes, Appendix M, takes the identified types of solar facilities, the ordinance that you adopted in 2021, and we identify where they can go in what districts and under what approval procedures. Okay? Are y'all with me to here? Mm-hmm. Okay. Reagan, can you pull up the wonderful and erudite PowerPoint that I prepared to go through this for this afternoon? The first thing I'm going to do is go back and refresh your memory on what the different types of these solar facilities are. Okay? This is an integrated solar system. These are roof shingles that generate solar energy from the sun in order, excuse me, to be used to provide power to your home or business. They are called integrated because they are part of the construction materials. Go to the next slide, please. This is another view of a different form of solar generation shingle that's used on a roof, but it doesn't have to be on a roof. Go to the next. Here, solar panels are used in the actual construction of the building itself, and they form the facade of the building. Go to the next one. And here is another architectural design where the same solar panels are built in as part of the building facade. So they are integrated into the building design. All right, now, the other form that we talk about is rooftop. Now, the difference between rooftop and having shingles is the fact on the left side here, you can see a residential dwelling. It has its traditional roof, and the solar panels are placed on an array on top of the roof itself, the old roof. On the right, you see the same thing on top of an industrial or commercial building. And this is what we refer to as rooftop, and under Georgia law, this is a form of generation that must be consumed on site.
Say that again.
It must be consumed on site by the building or the house where it's placed.
Wait, that's Georgia law?
Yes, sir.
I thought it could be sold back at 3 cents.
Hold on. It can be sold back at a very low avoided cost under Georgia Power tariff, but James, the size of the system is limited to 125% of the maximum load
Sure.
on the building itself.
It can't be designed to generate.
That is
more-
correct.
Yeah.
You can't design a solar system for arbitrage so you can sell it back. You can provide it back to the grid at a
When
low
you're ready.
cost. That's correct. So generally, it's consumed on site, and the Georgia Cogeneration and Distribution Act follows that through. All right, now let's look at the traditional ground mounted. You're going to hear ground mounted throughout the discussion. This is what you generally identify as being a traditional solar array. If you have been down Highway 19 to Butler and taken, I think it's State Route 96 that runs partially between Macon and Columbus, Taylor County was the first place where solar was deployed in huge farms, and this is what you will see for miles in Taylor County.
Yeah, it's a tragedy.
It is, now, you will see, well, politically, because southwest Georgia and rural Georgia had very little economic development, these were very popular. Now, as things happen, these are called utility scale solar arrays because of their size. As Georgia Power has conducted requests for proposals for renewable energy in order to get the cost of these down, and solar is now the cheapest cost generation that this state has. In order to get the cost down, the farms have grown. So for example, you have 2,000 acres in Twiggs County that is a utility scale solar farm.
Yeah, just to be clear, they chopped down 2,000 acres of forest to put
correct.
up green energy.
That is correct. Well, and James, that has now become, you're seeing groups come in that are opposing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have farmers in South Georgia who love it.
Yeah, because they get to sell their farm and.
They get to lease it and make money that's cheaper than them having to go. I will digress for a minute. I was in western New York, traveling from the Finger Lakes to Buffalo, and as I was getting on I-90, and there's beautiful farmland up there. On the left side of the road, as I was getting on the interstate, was a farmer who had leased his farm for a solar farm. And on the right side of the road was a farmer who had signs up that said, "Protect farmland, no solar." And in that one street, you have the delineation of the battle that's dealing with zoning and also energy deployment. But y'all know I work at the PSC. I'm involved with renewable energy. We have utility scale solar predominantly, and those are the huge farms, because Georgia Power has not been as willing to see what's called distributed generation, smaller facilities that are built to generate and provide assistance to load where high demand is. So you've got all of these farms in South Georgia, and we're now having to pay to transmit all of that energy to North Atlanta. All right. Now, so these are the types of facilities that are covered in the ordinance. Now, in order to make this easier to understand, I did a summary sheet. So you can see how we deal with these in this ordinance by districts. We do not allow in this ordinance, as a permitted use by right, any solar facility. If you want a traditional ground-mounted system and you want to develop that, and we define it by small, medium, and intermediate, and large, tied to the amount of generation, you come in your agricultural zones, or at least AR1, and apply for a special exception.
I'm trying to follow this graph that we have here. Permitted uses, none. S&E permitted uses.
Special exception permitted
So
uses.
they can come in and ask for a special exception.
That is correct.
Okay.
Now, as a permitted accessory use, you can build your house with building materials that are solar generating. But as a special exception accessory use, if you want to put a traditional rooftop array on, you got to come and ask for approval of the special exception in order to make certain that it is compatible with the rest of your neighborhood, particularly if you're in a subdivision. So here you see a summary of what types of solar are or can be developed in which agricultural zoning district, and I've covered all three. Because AR2 is your exclusive estate zoning. You can build your house with it, you can put rooftop shingles on it as a matter of right, but we do not allow the arrays, that I showed you the picture of, that are ground built.
I thought you said that by right, you have it in AR2 on the rooftop.
No, a rooftop is always a special exception accessory use. It would come to y'all for approval. And I might add, there's also a big fight between HOAs and who don't want to see rooftop and people in subdivisions who want to deploy rooftop. Most states have a statute that says the right to generate on your roof supersedes HOA restrictions against it. We do not have a statute like that, but one's been introduced several years. It's never passed, and ultimately that's going to wind up in the courts. But that is an issue of contract between the HOA, as y'all know, and the person who has the house. Okay?
But if you have a house, you should be able to put what you want on it.
I agree.
Well, as a general rule, I agree with you, but you have HOA documents, Gwen, that say you can't do rooftop solar.
Okay, but
Then-
barring
then-
that,
yeah.
not, if you're
Barring the
not in a
county code.
HOA and you want to generate energy at your house, why should they have to come and ask us permission to do that? I mean, if I wanted to go out and decorate with all kinds of Christmas lights and leave it up for the whole year, I don't have to get
Okay.
permission because it's my house.
We took the position in drafting this that because of variations on how roofs are done and because of variations in subdivisions, that ground mounted on the ground was not appropriate. But if you wanted to put it on your roof, request a special exception. If y'all choose to make rooftop available as a permitted use as a matter of right, it's an easy change.
I think we should.
All right?
We have a bunch of roofs in America that are just sitting there getting hot during the day. And if they were instead covered with solar panels, virtually I know in the city of Griffin, if I put the solar panels on my house, I would easily lower my cost of power by about 60%. And imagine if everybody did that and we didn't have to create 60% of power via coal and fossil fuels and this kind of stuff, like, much less transmit them. On the other hand, I'm wildly against these giant solar farms. They do not generate as much energy as it costs to deploy them, much less to maintain them. I have a friend whose full-time job it is to drive from these solar panels to the next and wash them every day.
Oh, there's
He's using
O&M
more
costs
power
of
than they're generating in total just to wash them, much less how much it costs to create them, much less the 2,000 acres in the one plant that could have been trees that are pulling carbon out of the air instead of reflecting it back. So
One thing I've learned at the PSC is there's no such thing as a perfect energy source. There are
I agree.
pluses and minuses and trade-offs with all of them.
I'm asking a question. I'm asking a stupid question here. I'm thinking about property values and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is not approved by us and we allow like a homeowner to come out and do whatever they want, could that actually be a hindrance to the community where it could, in some form or fashion, decrease the property value of someone's home? If you're the neighbor?
Here's the thing, the deployment of rooftops an economic decision. You just
It
heard
is.
James talking about the reduction of the power bill. Okay.
Right.
One thing you didn't say was that solar array system may cost you an additional $25,000 on your house.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, The question
We
is,
recorded 40, but then you get like all these government.
because of tax incentives, you get some of that cost reduced effectively.
Yeah, lowered by 40 to 25. Or something.
Right, there's an investment tax credit for those. And those become at various times political, hot potatoes. But nonetheless, you have to make an economic decision. How much are you willing to invest in order to get a reduction of your power bill over what amount of time?
Right.
And then you do have a question, Rita, where folks who come in and deploy rooftop, and then the purchaser doesn't want it. Okay?
But that's the same thing as a pool or a
Exactly.
shed,
It's
or,
not a
you know what I mean?
That's
creative
correct.
community, though. I think it-
That's correct.
I think it plays a part.
So I feel like, are y'all possibly saying that, and that you want them available by right, no matter what the zoning,
If it's rooftop.
If
if it's a rooftop?
It's rooftop.
Be it integrated or sitting on top?
And it
But
would-
we don't want ground mounted even by special exception?
Like maybe, I'm not saying no, not to all ground mounted. Again, I have a friend here in Spalding County who, on his 150 acres, he didn't have a place on the top of his house. So he put in like a little area, like a little ground mounted thing.
Correct.
But it's enough for his house. You know what I mean? Like it's,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not this array in these large scale, hey, we're chopping down the forest. It's, he probably has, maybe 10, 20 panels, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
not, the equivalent of what would go on his roof, but his roof didn't have the angle and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So
Well, and you've got to have the roof at an angle where
Right.
it will be able to generate enough energy because of the angle and the sun direction down, in order to make it economically viable. So you cannot have an economically viable rooftop array on every house
just because the angles.
because of
tree
the angles
covers,
and the
yeah,
tree
yeah.
cover.
Okay,
No,
so,
I agree with that.
so then we
I
would,
do think
But-
it'd be weird even for a small ground mounted one to be like in your front yard right next to your mailbox or something like that.
Exactly.
That'd be a tacky thing to have.
I
But
agree.
I don't know of anyone, and again, we've bought 2 houses in the last 4 years, you know what I'm saying, or I guess 5 years. And we drove around and toured every house that was for sale in Griffin, it seemed like. And the ones that we toured that did have roof mounted, like that was always a feature. It was always something that added to the value. It was always something that we were looking at, my brother's looking at, like it's.
because you don't have to pay the upfront cost, it's already been done.
Right.
That's right, that's right.
As a general rule, ground mounted on site has usually been developed for commercial facilities, James, but it is permitted under the Cogen Act for a residence, but you have different aesthetics issues with that. And if somebody wanted to come in and do ground mounted at their house, I would urge y'all to have that as reviewed as a special exception accessory use, because
I agree with that.
it's got to be in the back, it needs to be in the backyard or the side yard.
Unless it's over 5 acres.
And you
Yes,
you
side
don't
fences,
want
yeah.
that to be the predominant feature of the
You also have
house.
to take into account, this was maybe 5 years ago when we discussed this. They reflect light as well. So, if you have this big field in in East Griffin where we're about to build a new airport, you know what I'm saying? Like, and all of a sudden these planes are taking off and getting blinded, there's issues with that.
No,
I know in Atlanta they have those things.
They do not reflect.
There's two types. There's ones that absorb all. It's the type of coating on the top. Those are the newer ones, but I don't know if they've officially banned the old ones that like straight up. They had a big problem when I worked for the zoning in Atlanta because you'd have these buildings that had some on the top, and those would reflect into the tall building next door. You know what I mean? And so it was like, hey, you guys are installing these giant. This is crazy. And so they made the decision to go with the newer generation that like specifically doesn't. You know what I mean? So we could even have those provisions that are like, hey, you have to put this. I don't know if it's a film or if it's inside, but there's a type that doesn't reflect at all because the whole idea is to absorb the light.
Well, again, there's no such thing as a perfect means of generation. There are pluses and minuses to it. I will tell you the most interesting place, I think, in Georgia where you have renewable energy is the landfill in DeKalb County at the intersection of 675 and 75.
Yeah.
And that has two renewable facilities, one for landfill gas, and that green cover is solar film, and it is generating electricity.
And I think it's, when we get international friends that come in, we always drive past that and go, see, see what we're doing? I think it's, I mean, it's a giant unsightly mountain of trash, but at the same time, like, they've turned that into,
Functional.
as good as you can get when it
All right,
comes
let's-
to dealing with a giant unsightly mountain of trash.
Let's go on. We're digressing a little. Here is how the uses are allowed, solar uses are allowed in our residential zones. And you can see the difference between the single-family zones versus R3, R6, which are apartments and condominiums, and Village Node and AAR, which are more mixed use. And in AAR, where more public amenities are available, where if they wanted to do a solar array, they would be able to. So you can have a small ground-mounted system
As especially.
as a special accessory, as a special exception use. And we can, again, we can easily move rooftop to be a permitted use, accessory use. All right. All right, these are our commercial and industrial zones. You can see the more industrial the character, the more industrial the zoning, the larger facilities that can be approved. Spalding County will probably never have an array comparable, let's say, to that EMC facility that you see down on 75 below Warner Robins. And the reason is because of property values. Land value has driven solar development into South Georgia.
Well, there's also the fact on the opposite end that it doesn't generate as much as it costs. The only way they actually break even is with the government subsidies for those big farms. And so people are sort of learning that lesson, that they're sort of like a monorail. Like, people get excited about it and then they build it and then they regret it, because it just doesn't generate what they're told it's gonna generate.
Well, they're seeing nasty fights down there in zoning battles.
Yeah.
And just so you'll know what's coming, Georgia Power is having to find 15,000 more megawatts of generation to provide data center service. All right. That 2,000 acre solar array in Twiggs County generates under 300 megawatts.
Exactly. And yet, how many does Vogel generate?
Vogel is about 1,500 by the time 4 comes online. Let me double check on that, James. That's ballpark.
I think that's per reactor though.
It could be. But again, solar is important, but it is not a unilateral, universal answer to renewal. It's not a universal answer to the elimination of carbon. And one of the ironies is all those trees they cut, James, go to biomass plants,
Right, and they burned them.
and they burn them.
Yeah,
And you know,
real green.
the other thing I was amused at when EVs first hit was you were going to charge your car at night, and you were not going to generate carbon, but the electricity in 2005, when EVs first started to come out, was all carbon, was all coal.
Yeah.
So you were, you know, but that's the way this stuff works. So anyway, you see the uses, I've shown you pictures of what you're approving, what would be approved. I've shown you a summary of the districts and where this ordinance places or allows these various types of solar facilities. And following up on what Sylvia said, from what I hear, the one change that I've heard is you're comfortable with rooftop being a permitted use without special exception approval.
Even in commercial, not just residential?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Frank, can you go back one slide, please?
Think about how great it would be if all of those, LEED certified commercial and industrial buildings in an industrial park, all were just covered in, you know what I mean, there's acres and acres of rooftops up there, you know what I mean? Like, I know that some of them do have some solar, but like, we just got these rooftops that are just sitting around.
Well, remember Newton showed you pictures of buildings that had them on the side.
Yeah, on the side too, yeah, absolutely.
But I will tell you unequivocally, and I know we're being recorded, and I don't know whether my friends at Georgia Power watch these or not, but I will tell you that Georgia Power's policy has promoted the large utility scale facilities with much greater interest and support than wanting to allow a property owner to deploy for their own generation, whether it's rooftop residential, whether it's rooftop solar, or whether it is ground-mounted solar adjoining an industrial or commercial building.
I was on, how do I say that? I was on the team that was trying to get Georgia Power and the state of Georgia to change that law so that you could essentially sell back at a normal rate. 48 states, only 2 states don't do that. 48 states let you sell back the power you're not using at whatever the fluctuating rate is. So if it's at a prime time and the rate is 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour, then, but it's going from my house to you, I get 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Georgia State, however, no matter what the fluctuating rate is, gives you 3 cents per kilowatt hour, which is lower than even the off rate that they're charging you. So what that's done in other states who get to say, hey, if you're not using this power and you're putting it back into our grid, we'll give you whatever, instead of us having to spend how many zillions and how many acres of forest, and we're desperate for 15,000 new, hey, why don't we incentivize everybody putting it on their roofs like 48 other states do? Clark Howard was on the team. We had just a cavalcade of people who went in and testified before the state senate. Here's all the reasons. Other power companies for other states, their CEOs came in and said, hey, initially we opposed it, but now it went through and it's worked wonders for us. We don't search for energy anymore. Holy cow, it's dropped the price of energy statewide. We don't have to, it works everywhere. And then they said, well, I think there is someone who's going to speak against it. The Georgia Power representative came up with nothing. He didn't even open his briefcase, and we just went, hey, we're just not ready for it this time. That was it. That was this whole argument. And the state, they went, all right, all opposed, unanimously against.
James, after this last IRP, I don't know how much y'all want to hear about this, but if it's time to vote and shut up, I'll do it. Georgia Power, in the last IRP, has come forward with a distributed generation program that is much more intensive. But they want to own the facility at your house.
Exactly, and that's crazy sauce. Like no, you can't own my roof, Georgia Power. Like,
That bring it-
48 states do it in a straightforward, if you're generating power and sending it back on the grid. And it has to be done in a specific way. You can't just, it's got to be on the right voltage and whatever.
James, there is a study committee at the commission on the 10th of July. I would encourage you to go.
Mr. Chairman, I think you're still in public hearing.
You are.
Okay. Anybody else? Do I have a motion to close the public? We're going to vote on this in just a second. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to come out of public hearing.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 5, we're out of public hearing. Does everybody know what they want to do here?
Well,
I'm gonna make sure everybody's- this is,
do we want to make those 2 changes? Get rid of large-scale ground-mounted solar farms?
I'm
and
good
at
with
the same
that one.
time-
The one with roofs, I kind of want to continue to have it coming to us.
That's what I would like.
I understand that.
I mean, HOAs still get to say no if they want to.
I just think that as we step into it, let's hold it, and then as we get further into it, we start to say, all right, let's turn it over to Sylvia, and then from
Newton-
Sylvia, let's just turn it over to everybody.
Could our ordinance say we're not, you get it, we're not permitted by an HOA, so that you don't have does the HOA trump or does the ordinance trump? Like, could we put it in the ordinance where not permitted by HOA?
James, I would not do that because HOA is a contract right that is unconnected to zoning in any shape, form, or fashion.
Well, we could put
I
that
would-
into a special exception. You'd have to come in a special exception if you want an HOA. You see what I'm saying? Like, that way it bypasses for folks that have a special aesthetic in there.
If you have an HOA that has a provision that's against it or that prohibits it, it won't matter whether it's permitted as a use, as a permitted use, or as a special exception use.
Oh, I thought you said earlier that,
That's only right. That's only
that
right.
the,
No.
that the
You-
ordinance was trumping HOAs. Didn't you say that
The
earlier?
ordinance does, but the fact that you got approval for a special exception to have something on your rooftop would not prevent HOA initiating an action against you
For violating the HOA.
for violating
I
the
see what you're saying.
contract
I
of
see.
the HOA docs.
I see what you're saying.
I think that gets a little too.
First of all, I'm good with the large scale, pulling it out. I'm not knowledgeable enough, but I don't.
We're just
I
not a
think-
community event.
Let's start with the roofs coming to us, and then, like he has it, and then let's turn around, and if we start to see one way or the other, we'll change it. But right now, we have very few of these as far as I'm concerned.
We have significantly more than you think, and I get if it was a whole, I mean, some of the systems are more noticeable than others, but like, you know,
If you choose to put $25,000 or $30,000 worth of value into your home, you should not have to get permission to do that. I mean, you may have to come in and say, this is what I want to do, but going through a special exception, that's like saying I want to get sod put in my yard.
yep.
I'm
Right.
adding to my property.
Put a swimming pool.
And look, the small ground mounted, even that, I worry because technically by this definition, I have small ground mounted at my house because all of our backyard lights are all solar. You know what I mean? And they're mounted in the ground, like, and then I've got lights that hang from the eaves of my house that are solar paneled. Am I gonna have to come back and ask because I bought something at Sam's Club for $20? You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is a solar, like, wait a minute, why can't I just do that? Now, again, if I'm trying to generate power and do okay, hey, that's different.
Yeah, and,
You follow what I'm saying?
is that set up so that, the solar lights that we walk with and stuff like that don't count? Because
Surely.
we have them on, stop signs and all that
We
other
all
stuff,
have them.
that we use them around. I assume that.
We have to give ourselves a special exception.
Yeah, somewhere in there, we've eliminated those kinds of things.
Sorry to be the one who sits up here and thinks of worst case scenarios. Me and Gwen are good.
Well, you're also gonna have to put some language around, what do you mean large scale?
Well, we've got that in M. We've
Okay.
got that in M.
Okay.
Yeah, they have the small, intermediate, and large,
So we're,
Uh,
and you're happy with
Just so you'll
those?
know, solar energy, small scale is 1 to 5 acres, medium or intermediate's 5 to 15, and large scale
So-
is greater than
so
15.
less than an acre is nothing?
You can't,
1 to 5 is between 1 and 5 acres, or if you want to revise to say 0, we can do that. Here's the definition. Reagan, pull up Appendix M
Right,
in
if
Muni
it's 1 to
Code,
5,
Section
then if you have one that's
103.
the size of this room, you don't. That's a
Yes,
weird
so
loophole
that,
you're
so
getting.
are you comfortable with 1 to 5 being the definition of small? Because I feel like what
It
you're
seems pretty
saying is,
intermediate to me.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, is
Size
like,
is.
I don't think you mean 1 to 5 being small. I think you mean
Small to
somehow
me is
personal
is-
use
Yeah,
on
personal
a
use.
my house, which isn't going to be 5 acres.
Right.
So and I'll be honest with you, up to an acre is still a lot.
Yeah,
So-
and that seems more like a commercial scale, like some of the lakes at Green Valley or Caterpillar, if they want to put it on the roof, that's going to be more than an acre, but it's still for the facility itself's use. You know, they might bleed some of it back into for the tuppence that Georgia Power allows us when we sell them the power that they then sell for 12.5 inch. But that said, that's still, to me, it's I don't know if we want to get into more of like the size, like the acreage, or if it's like, are you generating for your own property and your own use and happen to be sending some of it back when you're not, you know what I'm saying? Like, that might be more the scale. You know what I'm saying? Because if Caterpillar wants to generate a bunch, they're still gonna use it there at Caterpillar. You know what I mean? Like, but if, you know, if my house has it and then I clear the 0.7 acres in my backyard and I put it nothing but solar, I'm gonna be generating a lot more than what my house is. And technically, that's smaller than our small definition, so I would just get that. And like, my neighbors would really hate it if I turned my front yard into a solar, you know.
Do we think we really are?
I think
going
we're on the right, I think we're on the right
or is
track,
this
but I don't
a-
know if we're quite
This
there.
is some more
Is this a
conversation.
time-sensitive issue for us?
No, I'm telling you right now, we need to, y'all aren't ready to make a
We-
first reading.
We've had
onto
this we've been trying to get this on your agenda for 3 years.
But now we've got good conversation, and I think we need to capture a different small, and we need to address the 0 to 1 acre. You want to see rooftops by right in every zoning classification.
Personal use generation should be a right,
Yeah,
but, but if you want them on the ground, we then have to say, well, they gotta be in the
Special
backyard,
exception.
and they've gotta, well, not necessarily special exception, but just like, hey, they gotta be in the backyard, they can't be in the front, you know, there's some specific rules that you can put down. If you want it outside of that, hey, the only spot I have is in the front, you know, can I get a special exception? You know what I mean? Like,
James, I would,
What we want to do is table this right now.
sure. Well, they're wanting feedback for
Yeah,
what direction
and
to keep
I
going.
agree with that. I just want to make sure that we're all
Yeah,
just providing
It's the
feedback.
personal
this
use
time. We're not
concept, I
trying to
think,
get
is what we're.
into-
Yeah.
That's what we're kind of torn over.
So while we're just thinking about this,
Please.
what would concern me is that if someone has 200 acres, we're saying you cannot put, and they want to do, I call it a solar farm. If they want to do that and they have the acreage and they're not right in somebody's backyard, what is our justification for not allowing them to do it? I don't like it on 75 because there's lots of traffic. But if you're out in the middle of North Spalding County or West Spalding County and you got 300 acres of land that you're not gonna farm, why should I say that you can't put up 50 or 100 of those things?
the horrific.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
Ecological impact?
Maybe they think, well, I mean, if you look out where Bart lives, he doesn't have trees, he's just got pastures. So there's no trees to be destroyed in the application of that. And there are a lot of farms that would meet that criteria, and I would hate for us to say that we're cutting them off when they don't have neighbors for at least half a
And I
mile
think
around
that's a
them.
great point. This has to do
But are we,
with
but are we
what
cutting
people
them off?
see
Are we
aesthetic
cutting them
value.
off?
Yeah.
I don't, we're asking them to come to us.
That's right. I think that's
No, we're not
special
saying
section.
no.
Hey, let's look at your specific
I
situation.
think it comes, I think what happens here when we say they're coming to us, is with the idea that we're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
I just think it gives us a little bit more leverage and okay, to know exactly what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it gives
You're-
us a
you're
little bit more
putting in
control to
than
know,
your
because what
personal
we may
use.
think and what they may think may be totally
I-
different and
Right.
everything else.
I
That's all.
thought James said that he did not want us to have allowing the large-scale solar outdoors at all. That's why I made the comment that I made.
Well, I don't want the large scale. The large scale is like the
Depends on
2,000
how it
acre,
looks.
like
Depends on what
crazy.
it's
You know what I'm
doing.
saying?
Depends on
If
what
you
it's
want to
doing.
have,
we are probably not
50
going to see those
And-
because of the
but if
tract
somebody
sizes in
did,
Spalding County.
You know, if
That's
they,
why we
they
look
wanted a
at it.
half acre for their farm or whatever, because,
yeah,
and even in that case, if you live on 20 acres, putting panels in your front yard is not really putting it in your front yard.
right.
So if your front yard is at the road and you live a half mile back,
Yep.
so
Which is
yeah, there's
exactly
some
why
stuff
we
we
would be
need
like, yeah, that sounds
to.
great.
I
We
think
should
this
totally
is
do
an
it.
aesthetic issue.
It is.
You're out in the middle of
Right.
the woods,
Yes.
and nobody else is around you.
Who
Nobody's
cares?
gonna see it.
No.
Who cares?
Right.
I'm all good for them doing it.
I'm talking
So
about
I think there's
roots.
some boundary issues.
But again, that's what the special exceptions are for. They come in and go, hey, I know this can't be in the front yard by the rule without a special exception. Here's why you should give it to me because I'm a half mile back in the.
And
you know what I
particularly
mean?
those without the HOA, because if they have an HOA, you know they're gonna be strict on them anyway, so we don't have to worry
So,
about
so
that.
that y'all will have size perspective, a 1 megawatt generation facility takes about 8 to 10 acres.
Really?
Let me put that in terms of usage size. A big Walmart will consume about 600 to 800 kilowatts. All right,
So that's 0.6 megawatts. for
Correct.
Walmart.
correct.
So one of those farms that side would actually keep Walmart going, or if they had solar panels on their
Correct. Or
roof.
if Walmart, and I might add, Walmart has one of the most aggressive renewable energy policies that, Walmart and Target both have aggressive renewable energy policies. But yes, if they had, let's say an acre of coverage on their roof, then they would be able to generate everything they needed
They had 8 acres.
instead of using 8 acres.
So I'm gonna add one more thing to the mix. So if we're talking about people being able to do rooftop, there's a difference in laying the panel flat and laying the panel at a diagonal. And I think that really makes a big difference, because with the diagonal, I don't know what kind of frame it has, you may get some reflection from somewhere else. But I think, are we saying that you can, I mean,
Rooftop systems, when usually are affixed to a
Yeah, they-
metal thing
so
on
we
the
wouldn't
roof
see the
that's flat.
same kind of alignment that we would see with ground
No.
on someone's roof?
No.
Okay.
And what, with ground mounted, they can tilt them to follow the sun
Mm-hmm.
in order to increase the generation.
Okay.
All right, here's what I thought. Let's go ahead and table this, and let's pull it into a workshop a little bit later on, where we sit down and everybody takes some opportunity to go around, see some stuff, and then come back and say, okay, let's talk about it again, because I think we're kind of, I hate to say this, blind leading the blind through this and doing stuff like that. All right,
Did we give y'all enough information to kindly recraft some stuff on here?
The one thing that came pretty clear, except from the chairman, was that y'all are comfortable with rooftop
Yeah,
as a permitted use.
yeah.
Mr. Davis is not quite.
I'm not comfortable either,
Okay,
if I didn't make myself clear.
okay. All right, do I have motion to table?
Motion table.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 5-0, motion carries. I hope you all have what you need to be able to start again. And we'll do a workshop when you're ready to go through and say, hey, let's go through it now. And we've had time to walk around and we see them and say, hey, let's talk to people as we're going through, just talking to our regular neighbors. All right.
who seconded that?
Do
I
we have
have.
an executive session? No, we don't have an executive.
Lift from the table, application 2419Z 3881, North Expressway LLC, owner Spalding County Board of Commissioners, agent 3981, North Expressway, approximately .96 acres, located in land lot 107 of the 3rd Land District. Spalding County request rezoning of C1B, heavy commercial, and C2, manufacturing, to C1B, heavy highway, commercial, and North Expressway Improvement District overlay. All right, Director.
Well, actually, I want to make a correction, obviously, on our end that made it to your agenda. The request is actually to take it back to C1, not
Do I
C1B.
have a motion to lift it?
Motion to lift.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 5-0, this has been lifted from the table. All right, Director, talk us through it.
Yes, and if you all recall, when we talked through the 105 parcels of Sunnyside, 19 specifically that were cut by the boundary of the city, the circle, this was a parcel that caught your attention and you wanted to discuss the possibility of, well, just really understanding what is its current use. What did you even want to consider going back to its original zoning, which would have been C1, not the C2 or the C1B? And one of the resounding differences is that it minimizes or eliminates the outdoor unenclosed storage, which, as one of the commissioners mentioned, was that seems to be something that always gets away from us. We approve developments that don't necessarily cater to the conditions that are set before them. And so that's why you're hearing our recommendation to C1. So you've got some pictures in your packet that it's currently, recreational vehicle. There's lots of them stored there, but there's also, I think there's a picture of an inoperable vehicle that would have been one of the conditions that it's not, that property is not maintained with that. So, and just remember that whatever is there now, you can't kick them out. This is not about that. It's about understanding that the next iteration of business, whatever happens next, would have to comply with whatever zoning you choose. And so, whereas now it's cut between that C1B and C2, we would recommend that it is taken back to the zoning of C1. And then, of course, we will address any outstanding code enforcement issues on the property right now.
When the current occupant, I won't say owner, I guess they came and said, hey, we want this changed so we can do outside storage and we want this, there were concerns. I know Gwen brought them up first, but the rest of us agreed that, hey, right now it looks kind of junky. We need you to do better. We need you to take care of this. There's weeds and it's all just kind of parked willy-nilly. We need you to do better. And to their credit, I think we tabled, and then they came back and we had pictures, and they had gone and parked everything straight and repainted some lines, you know what I mean, and cleaned it up, and it looked nice. And since then, I don't think they've done any kind of upkeep on it. Like it looks
Like it did.
like it did. And it was, I don't remember the exact motion, but I'm pretty sure we made the zoning contingent on it looking nice, continuing to look nice.
Yes, in fact, you had conditions that are in the staff report. I've reiterated the conditions, and you're right. And like I say, the current use can be addressed with code enforcement. So, but we're really talking about ultimately what it brings it back to the next owner, the next tenant.
So I think we have, when we made this change, it was contingent on, hey, you got to keep it up, and they haven't. I mean, they just haven't. Anyone who drives through there, I mean, it's not as bad as it could be, but it's not nearly as good as it should be. So I think that we have almost an obligation to go back. That said, I want to make it very clear that this doesn't stop them from currently operating. Even if we change it to AR1, they would continue to be non-conforming, grandfathered in.
Right.
It doesn't actually stop them.
For the future, this is for the next.
That's right.
Next.
But for code
There would be a
enforcement, if you have an
non-conforming use.
old wrecked trailer sitting on the property, that is not what this area is supposed to be for. This was because you're supposed to have overflow from across the street.
Yeah, we were promised really nice sales, and we're gonna keep it looking nice, and I'm sorry that has not been the case.
So the motion would be to go from C1B heavy commercial to C1. And
Well, except for that the current use is split. It's C1B
yeah.
and C2, because half of it was in Sunnyside as one zoning, and the other half was in Spalding County as another.
So
And the-
C1B and C2 to C1.
Yeah, so the motion is to rezone the entirety of this parcel, both the part that was inside Sunnyside and the part that wasn't, to C1.
Yes, sir.
correct.
So the whole
That's my
parcel
motion.
will be C1.
I second it.
All right, I have a motion to second. Any more discussion?
Again, it's not gonna affect the current occupant. They get to continue to, that would be a terrible thing to do, to cut out a business. Even if we would like to encourage them to do better and make it more aesthetically pleasing, it's not gonna stop them from operating their business.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 5-0, motion carries. Okay.
Who seconded?
Who's the second?
A couple of comments. We have just a few days left before the audit is due to community development,
To DCA.
DCA, I mean. Where are we?
So the indications that we heard today from Malden and Jenkins are that they are working overtime to include last weekend and will work up until 8:30 tomorrow evening, but they indicated that the probability of us receiving the audit for transmittal to DCA by Sunday evening are very slim, and that we could expect to receive the audit on the 8th of the 8th of July,
July.
as their offices are closed next week.
Are we all set so that as soon as we get it, it goes?
We are.
Okay. All right, everybody understands? We're,
Are they all set to receive it a month late and get back on top of us and reopen the, the grant money? You know what I mean? Like,
We are in constant contact with both parties.
as good as that can be, I suppose.
That's correct.
okay. Secondly, for everybody, there should be receiving your tax assessments. If you haven't got it by 5 July, you need to go to the tax assessor board, and they'll give you a free copy. And don't forget that you have till August 8th to appeal. Once you've missed the appeal date, you're done. Aquatic Center is 11:45 tomorrow for us to be there. I'm
11:45.
we said I'm gonna wear white, I'm gonna wear what Ryan has on and wear the hat the Spalding hat, to do that. The county manager's gonna be all dressed up in his suit, so.
So you're saying you want us all to wear that? Is that the?
That's what I'm wearing, and I would think that would be nice if we all could do that, but if you're coming from work or something,
Let's wear the
absolutely.
blue. The white kind of washes us all out. The blue, I think, looks better. In a picture, we're all wearing the same white. It's gonna be like, who are these floating heads? We'll wear the polos.
I'm good. Don't forget, we're closed on Friday.
I'm going to.
If you wanna wear something else, I just thought we should all look the same when we're out there for scenery. We're closed on.
Speedos.
The parade is.
Aerodynamic.
The parade lineup is at 9 o'clock on the 4th.
And it's gonna be, and where is the lineup?
The lineup will be in the parking lot of the annex.
All right, just so that.
Bring your
how many
golf carts.
people- How many people are planning on being here that need rides?
I'm building fire trucks, so.
Yeah, fire truck.
Yep.
Everybody else is good, or I'm gonna be walking with the mayor, so I don't need a ride. And this is an
Me
issue
and my kids are gonna be in a fire truck.
Okay.
I think my wife's gonna drive the 55 though.
Fire truck?
My Bel Air.
Okay, all right. Do you need
saw it, right?
anything?
Didn't you see that?
Okay, okay. Ms. Wynn, do you need any, okay. All right. Any other comments going on right now?
I've got a couple things that I need to chat. Where are we at on the HR reimbursement for the health
Medical?
insurance?
The medical side?
We're still working through that, so bear with us.
I mean, we passed that a few years ago, right? I mean, did we never do it? Like what?
It's not been done, but we are working in the background to understand how that's going to be accomplished. It's important for me too, and I know you understand.
I mean, I remember that raising the premiums decreased the county premium by like 630-something thousand. I mean, vaguely.
That's what we're working in the background.
But then we always set aside $250,000 to the reimburse. And then I remember the first couple times people would come in and say, yeah, we only used this much of it. I was like, oh, okay. Like, now we know why we're only using this much of it, because.
Yeah, those funds were for the HSA, the help.
Right.
That's what those funds were for, and it's a contribution every year from the employee.
No. We had a full discussion about we're going to set aside $250,000 to reimburse people who went above for the $3,000, because we went from $1,000 in deductible to $4,000. But we said if we self-insure and self-cover that $3,000,
Right.
we had to set aside $250,000 for that. That's what they estimated, and so it was going to be a net savings, right? And so we set aside the $250,000 to then reimburse $3,000 a pop as needed. And we all assumed it was happening. I mean, I don't want to talk for everybody, but I think we all assumed it was happening. This is the first time I've had to go in and, and I was just met with, we don't know what you're talking about. I didn't know it was an issue until I went in either, like,
Let the county
And this was
manager
years
work
ago.
through it and come back and
Okay.
tell us. If we've misunderstood or something, we've misunderstood, we'll be able to do that. Tomorrow, if you're gonna be at the pool, if you wanna speak, this is going to try to be fairly short for all of us. All of us are prepared to speak, so just be prepared to come forward and make your remarks if you want to. If not, just let us know. I'll make sure everybody can stand up and do that stuff, or the county manager can, one of us, so that we've got the people that are there.
We've got a pretty tight agenda anyway on that, right? I mean, we've got a lot of
We do.
speakers, so.
I'll
I mean,
keep my remarks under 20 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, all right. Anything else from anybody? All right. We'll have a motion.
Well, actually, one more question, because employees are calling me, and I want to make sure that I'm telling the right thing. We have not given the fifth as an extra day. We're expecting most people to take it, but they had to use their PTO.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I've been saying. I wanted to make sure that I'm saying the right thing.
I agree. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Not too bad.